Okay, so as I was saying, there are 1,000 different books you could be reading, and I said one man or woman's book is another person's poison. I said that earlier. So I would say, you know, these are two that I think are particularly up to date, where a lot of people's minds are at the moment. So I don't want to follow those chapter by chapter or in any way, you know, that's just a background material like Josephus for what you may be doing in this class. So read one or the other of those two books through during the course of the term and draw from it whatever material you think will be helpful to you in writing whatever you write, whether on an exam or in a paper. Is that clear? So there's no specific assignments from those books. They're just books to read. Good books giving another opinion than my own and bringing you up to date. They've got pretty good bibliographies and things of that kind. Bringing you up to date with contemporary research, because I'm more interested in primary documents. And you know, the literature in this field is so vast that I wouldn't even, from year to year, be able or even willing to stay on top of it. Because there's universities across America, from California to Atlanta, across Europe, you know, all over the universe, with graduate students and faculty members all writing articles to get their promotions and to be able to go to conferences and flooding journals and, you know, trying to get published or perish and things like that. So the literature is so vast that it would be, you know, you could actually turn into Rip Van Winkle by the time you finished it all. So I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't, but the point being, I don't have time in my life left to do all of that. You may be able to do that. So read one or the other of those if you can. The others are technical books that speak for themselves. Finally, the recommended ones. You know, the complete Dead Sea Scrolls gives you all the Dead Sea Scrolls in translation. I don't, as I told you, happen to like that person very, very much who edited it, but I've sold him more books than he deserves. And you know, his translations are fairly precise, although the key words he tends to fob over, like as I told you on that already, acts, deeds instead of works. The anointed one instead of Messiah. Where he comes to a really crucial point for where Christian theology or thinking is concerned, he punts. And I think for the reader who is not aware of that, then they don't see the connections as easily as if he would use the precise translation. Where it says Messiah, he should say Messiah. He shouldn't say his anointed one. Because you think, well, maybe this isn't the Messiah, you know, that they're talking about, when in fact it is. And occasionally he skips passages that don't fit in with his translation. But other than that, it's pretty good translation. The Dead Sea Scrolls Deception, as I told you about, is a very good one-volume introduction to the problem of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the questions and difficulties and the history of the research. And, somewhat from, as I told you, I helped with that book to some extent, but I'm not responsible for the, you know, what if, suppose, etc. type things. These are the two guys who wrote the Holy Blood, Holy Grail book. And I know them both personally. In fact, I just got a letter from the first one today, regretting that he did the lawsuit because it was very, very costly for him. And I wrote him back. I said, well, you got very poor legal advice because if the downside was such a downside, then it wasn't worth doing. And someone didn't give me the proper legal advice. I have no confidence in lawyers anyway, so who am I to say anything to anybody? I've never met a lawyer that didn't give me bad advice, or at least in retrospect, bad advice. I suppose because one always loses cases, it seems, and therefore one blames the lawyer. Maybe the lawyer gave me good advice, but one always ends up hating one's lawyer. In fact, I've always ended up hating my lawyer more than the person I was fighting. So someone may have had a good lawyer sometime. I'm really be happy to hear that. Don't tell me now, but we'd love to hear a good lawyer story, because I've only had bad ones, and bad judge stories too. So again, it goes into my bad dean, bad president stories and so on. My advice to anyone is stay out of court as much as you can, because the winner in the court always seems to be the establishment figure. And 80–90% of the time the judge goes with the establishment, whether it's the policeman or whoever it is stopping for a traffic ticket or whatever. The policeman can be lying through his teeth, and often is, and has done in my case, but you're going to lose. And that's just the way it is. Most of these judges are put into power by some election process or cronyism, and they have to repay whoever it is has put them there. It's a pretty ugly setup. It's not my idea of real justice, but maybe better than getting your head lopped off somewhere. So again, you know, there are, as I said, lesser and greater evils, I think. So you can't really say. So in any event, those guys are pretty well known, and I had to really rein them in a bit. You know, there were about 450 mistakes in their book, which I had to correct. But other than that, it's pretty solid, because 450 mistakes were actually correct. And they had an actual solid book there. I did not like the title, and I told their publishers I didn't like the title. If there's been a deception of some kind, that's for the reader to decide at the conclusion, not for someone to beat them over your head with. But the thing about publishers is that they choose the titles often, not the writers. You'd be surprised. Mostly in popular type book markets, the publisher chooses the title. And the publisher chooses the title for it to sell, like my New Testament Code. They want a title like that. I mean, I would like the subtitle, The Cup of the Lord, the Damascus Covenant, and the Blood of Christ. But anyone knows that if someone saw that book, they'd say, what's this, you know? And if it just said the Cup of the Lord and the Blood of Christ, it might have sold, but that would have been a deception, because the book is not totally about the Cup of the Lord and the Blood of Christ. It's got the Damascus Covenant mixed in the middle of it. So the point is, I would have liked the subtitle. The publishers wanted something like the other thing, and so that's what often happens. So I had told them that they should do the Dead Sea Scrolls Uncovered for the title, and let, if there's a deception or something that isn't totally on the up and up involved in what occurred in the Dead Sea Scrolls research issue, that the reader should make that as a conclusion. The publisher never spoke to me again, because I